Good morning, everyone. Today I'm speaking with Shawn Yakimovich, who is a naturopathic doctor right here in Kempville. His clinic is the Kempville Naturopathic Clinic on Van Buren, and every week he'll be sharing some tips with us to help us make the most of our gardens. Today's topic is medicinal gardens, and I know that is a passion for Shawn, so thank you for joining me today, Shawn. Thank you so much for sharing your information with us.
Thanks for having me, Anne.
So medicinal plants are a passion for you. We've talked about this before. How did that passion begin?
I guess it goes back to growing up. My mom was sort of interested in, using natural medicine. So I remember my very first exposure to herbal medicine was a cup of Colts Foot Tea for kind of a cold or a minor cough, right? So my mom would say, here, try this. And you'd have a tea with this sort of dried leaves floating in it. And tasted a bit weird, but not too bad. So, I would dutifully drink it down and, feel better. So then that just kind of planted the seed and said, I want to learn more about how this works. And then I remember looking at a herb book in high school, 1994 maybe, and all the Latin names and all the indications. And I said, oh, I'll never remember this. How will I ever get to know this much stuff? But 25 years later, I do.
Yes.
So it's wonderful. Yeah, it's been a great journey, and I continue to grow these plants for fun, but certainly using them in practice almost on a daily basis.
So what's your favorite medicinal herb? If you had to pick one, what is your
goodness.
Favorite?
Well, that's a very good question. I have a few, but I just had my logo redone, and it's got an Echinacea flower. So Echinacea, I mean, most people know Echinacea these days. They take it for colds, right? Take Echinacea, yeah, the first sign of a cold. So yeah, that's fine. But there are different species of Echinacea, and there's one in particular that was used more in the past for actually not just, colds and flus, but more bacterial infections. So severe bacterial infections and even rattlesnake bite. So it's called Echinacea Angustifolia. It's like a kind of a slower growing, not as showy species of Echinacea. But so it's a fantastic antibacterial. And so why I would say put at the top of my list is that we're entering an era in medicine right now where a lot of our antibiotics are losing effectiveness against bacteria. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is a growing problem. It's just getting worse. And so we need kind of, new approaches to bacteria. But here we have an old approach that worked very well. And we have, data and literature supporting its use in these sort of situations for strep infections, for staph infections. So Echinacea is very versatile. It's not just for colds. And I would say it's even more powerful and even more appropriately used in these types of bacterial infections.
And can we grow that here?
Yes, absolutely. So I have two species in my garden. So there's the Echinacea purpurea, which I would say most people have. It grows very easily, spreads quickly, nice bright purple flowers. So it looks nice. And it does have some medicinal property. But the Echinacea Angustifolia, it's like a paler, it's called narrow leaf Echinacea.
Okay.
Slower to grow. So certainly it's a lot more expensive, but from a medicinal perspective, it's much more powerful.
Okay.
And we always want to use the root. That's the medicinal part, the root only. And it's a pet peeve of mine that a lot of products out there use the leaf and flower and stem and the root. But no, we need the root only, and Echinacea Angustifolia is really the primary species. So if we want good medicinal kick, we got to use the right part of the plant and the right species of.
And what's the most potent way of administering it? Is it like a tea or a tincture? Or
so a tincture, probably a tincture. So that would be, a tincture is a combination of, it's sort of an alcohol and water mixture. And the plant is extracted in the liquid and then strained. And so then what we have is very stable liquid, which then is easy to administer, it's easy to measure, you can change the dose very easily.
Right.
And then can be given, small doses, large doses, depending on the circumstance.
Right.
So Echinacea in particular, good quality Echinacea, you'll know it immediately because if you take it in liquid form or chew a little piece of the root,
yeah,
your tongue will start to tingle instantly and it won't stop for half an hour.
Oh my goodness.
So that's a sign of quality Echinacea. If you take a tincture and it doesn't do that, then it's either old or the wrong part of the plant's been used. So,
right.
So don't use it. Yeah.
So that's a good sign.
That's a very good sign. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That has to happen.
How do you divide medicinal plants? There must be families that do, the ones that calm and the ones that, how do you divide them?
Yeah, it's not, there's certain commonalities, plants in the mint family. So that would include mint, skullcap, motherwort, you could say tend to be cooling, right? Have kind of a cooling effect on the body. So especially the mint. But it's not necessarily that cut and dry. You can't say, this group of plants does this, in the body as a medicine, this group does another. So for example, if we talk about the nervous system, what's calming? So plants that we know from traditional use and centuries, if not millennia of use, would be, chamomile is a very well-known calming herb. Skullcap, which is a calming herb. Motherwort, I mentioned, but valerian, passion flower, kava. So all very strong calming, but very different species from different plant families.
Right.
So kava is a root from Polynesia. Passion flower is a tropical vine. Chamomile is Ranunculaceae family, so like the buttercup family. And then motherwort and skullcap are in the mint family. So very, very different. We're kind of all over the map botanically, yet, these all kind of have some similar, sometimes overlapping actions, but then obviously they all have their kind of unique property. Yeah. But in general, you could classify all those plants together as what we call the nervine, or just a calming, have a calming quality on the nervous system, reducing anxiety, that kind of thing. So there's no real rhyme or reason for why it's distributed through the plant kingdom, but that's what humans have discovered over time.
Yes. So as a naturopathic doctor, what are some of the plants that you always keep in your medicine cabinet, if you will?
Okay, well, certainly, Echinacea, as is in a tincture form, is fantastic because it's so versatile for many things. But I have a few samples here of things that I grow in my garden. So I mentioned the Colts Foot Tea my mom gave me. So this is a big jar of Colts Foot from my garden.
Okay.
You can order nice little stickers on Etsy that people design, not me, but anyway, stick them on your jar. So this is really good Colts Foot for cough, like I say, respiratory infections. One of my other favorite plants is Calendula.
Yes.
So here I have a jar of dried flowers from my garden.
Nice.
And so Calendula, I take the dried flowers and I soak them in, what I would do is then fill this jar with olive oil. And after a few months sitting on the windowsill, I get this orange tinted oil. So it's oil that's been infused now with the calendula flowers.
Cool.
And then I use this oil, mix it with beeswax and make a salve. So kind of a nice topical cream that's very useful for healing any kind of skin irritation or wound, cut, scrape, anything like that, burns. And it works fantastic to speed the healing and repair of skin. So calendula, I always like to have lots of that. And so, if people are growing plants, making a herbal oil is one of the easiest things you do, because basically you take the plant material and mix it with oil, either in a jar or sometimes just with some gentle heat.
Yes.
And then you end up with an infusion. Really, say for calendula, we use the dry plant, You would just want to get as much as you can. So say ideally you would fill this jar
Okay.
with dried flowers, and then you just fill it with oil right to the brim. So there's no sort of,
Okay.
you're not measuring, you're not weighing, you're just kind of packing in as much flour as you can and then filling all the space with oil.
Okay.
So it's that, that's easy, but I'll show you here. I brought in 4 herbal oils I made last summer.
Okay.
So what I have here is St. John's wort oil.
Oh, I'm surprised. I wouldn't have thought that color.
It's gorgeous. It's like it's like, bottled rubies here. So St. John's wort oil. So St. John's wort's a weed, right? It grows kind of at the edges of hayfields and ditches. You could be silly and transplant it into your garden like I did. And now I have I don't know, 2 by 4 meter brick of it, and it pops up everywhere else in the garden too. So St. John's wort, you cut the flowers, put them in a big jar, fill it with oil, and you have to leave it in the direct sunlight for 2 weeks. And then you get this color change. So the sun activates the oil.
Yeah, it releases the color.
Yeah. And so St. John's wort is great for any kind of nerve pain. So you could rub this oil if anyone had nerve pain, neuralgia, shingles pain, right? So pain from shingles. And St. John's wort actually deactivates the herpes virus. So the same kind of virus that causes shingles, you could put this on. It would help the rash and the pain. Or if you had cold sores, that's a herpes virus infection. So you could dab a little St. John's wort oil, and it's going to speed the healing and relieve the discomfort from that infection.
Wow.
So very, very versatile as a herbal oil, very easy to make. This is Comfrey. So this is a plant, big green plant I grow in my garden. So, and so Comfrey is kind of like calendula. You could mix it with beeswax and put it in a cream, and it's very healing. It stimulates repair, especially if there's like bleeding or ulceration. If the tissue is really degraded, then Comfrey comes into play.
Okay.
And then this one is Jewelweed. So it's, again, a weed that grows in damp areas around here. And Jewelweed is the antidote for poison ivy rash.
Really?
So if someone, is prone to poison ivy, or you're that person who gets it every summer, no matter what you do, then you want to have some jewelweed oil put aside, and applying this, either rubbing the oil straight on the rash, or again, you could mix it with the beeswax, make a salve, and then apply that. It takes the itch out right away, relieves the rash very, very quickly.
I have relatives in Elmer who, when I moved to the country, I was dreading, because I was in the city, they lived in the country, and every year they would go through poison ivy, and it was always like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get it, because they would suffer. It was just weeks of suffering, and I just did not want that to be me.
But suffer no more. So impatience, I mean, it grows, like I say, wild around creek beds, things like that. But if you know someone with property who has a big stash, then they'll let you harvest it. So easy, very, very easy. The impatience, you would just chop up the herb fresh, put it in a slow cooker.
Yes.
Right. Fill a slow cooker with oil and just put it on the lowest heat for 8-10 hours.
Wow.
And that's how you extract it. Just a very gentle, warm extraction. So,
and does it change the heat? Does it change the properties?
Not if it's just low, gentle heat. You don't want to bring it to a boil, obviously.
Yeah.
So if it's low enough, then it's fine. So that's something people can start experimenting with. So even if they have just one of those flowers, to make a little supply of oil, and then maybe at a future lecture, I can show how to make the salve. So basically turning these oils into that salve. It's very easy to do. I have a very good recipe for it. And then once you know how to do that, you've got a fantastic topical medicine.
Yes, I love it. You're so passionate about it, but at the same time, it feels a bit like witchcraft. Like I feel like Harry Potter, just discovering all these
potions class.
Yes, exactly.
I think I mentioned chamomile in a previous talk. So here's just a bunch of chamomile blossoms dried from my garden. It became a weed. You're right. Yeah, very nice and sweet. So chamomile is very very gentle. I mean, most people know it as a calming kind of, sleepy time tea, which certainly it is.
Yes.
But I guess what's less well appreciated is it's actually a very potent anti-inflammatory. So especially if there was any kind of irritation in the stomach and the
Yeah.
esophagus, even to the point of ulceration,
Mm-hmm.
drinking chamomile tea consistently can soothe and relieve that inflammation.
Yes. Yes.
So it's
I did an anti-inflammation food plan
mhm,
because of my concussion, and I was eating all, like, eliminating anything that could cause inflammation, and I drank chamomile. It was part of the plan. I drank chamomile every day, not at bedtime, just
right, right.
throughout the day. And it was amazing. I loved how my body just felt so clean, is the only
Yeah,
way.
so it's wonderful. I mean, it's safe enough to give to infants and for teething
Mhm.
pain, anytime there's hot, inflamed tissue anywhere, chamomile
Yeah.
can come to the rescue, and especially if there's the accompanying emotional state, right, which would be
Yes.
irritability. It
Yeah.
hurts. I'm grumpy. I'm cranky. That's the chamomile state.
So what would you put? Would you put it topically where they were sore, if they were teething?
I mean, just give a little teaspoon, like depending on the age of the child, just a
Oh, yeah.
teaspoon of cool chamomile tea, for example,
Yeah.
right? Just
Yeah.
ingesting it can be useful, right? Just soothing the inflammation, and then that can be repeated through the day.
Nice.
Another use of chamomile actually is if you get it in a tea bag form, if there's any kind of eye inflammation like blepharitis, conjunctivitis, the eyes are just irritated from hay
Mhm.
fever, again, make a cup of chamomile tea, fish the bag out, just let it cool till it's a comfortable temperature, and then you can apply it to the eye for 10 minutes as a compress. And again, that
Mm.
anti-inflammatory property is going to act on the eye tissue and can actually relieve things very quickly.
That's amazing.
Hmm.
So much stuff, and it grows. I'm sure I had somebody walk through my back field last year, and they were naming stuff that's growing in my field. I had no idea. I just walk by like, oh, pretty flowers. I have no idea what's in my backyard.
Yeah,
But
we'll plant a little of chamomile and it'll self-seed.
yeah.
So it'll kind of start spreading around, and then you'll just have more and more. One of the great things about herbal medicine is usually they replicate themselves. So
Yes.
we have
Yeah.
medicine that increases its supply for free,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
one of many wonderful qualities of plant medicine. So
I have a question. What about
mhm,
pets? Is there anything, like, if you're growing stuff? I'm thinking
mhm.
about my own. We have dogs and cats, but I take the dogs for a walk in the field all the time. And we had mushrooms at one point, and they were going crazy eating the mushrooms and then getting sick.
Oh,
Is there anything that you have to be careful of when you're planting it if you have pets in your backyard?
that's a very good question. I'm sure there is, but I'm not a pet expert. So
Yeah.
you'd have to consult with your vet. I know certainly things like essential oils, right? So concentrated plant extracts. I think
Yes.
like eucalyptus, for example,
Yeah.
can be toxic to some pets and birds and dogs. So that's, but discuss it with your vet for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But certainly, just because I mean, there are plants, obviously they're toxic to humans too, should they be
Mhm.
ingested, right? Things like foxglove is a beautiful decorative plant. You see it in people's gardens, but very, very toxic. It's like a heart medicine.
Okay.
So that's just something to be aware of, that certain plants and even some common plants that we have growing can actually be quite toxic. So you just want to make sure children aren't munching on them or things
Yes.
like that. But
Yes. I know there's something that grows that burns people's skin. I don't have it on my property, but a friend of mine had it in her backyard. Apparently it's common here, and
oh, the
it
wild
burns skin.
parsnip. Wild
Yes.
parsnip, I think. Yes, yes. So it
Yeah.
reacts, the juice from the parsnip, if it gets on your skin, and then if the skin is exposed to sunlight, so you
Yes.
need both. You need the juice and the sunlight, and it creates a chemical reaction which can lead to huge burns, blistering burns,
Yes. Yeah.
which can be extremely painful. It can be, dangerous if it gets in the eye, could potentially
Yes.
lead to blindness. So it's, yeah, and certainly it's an invasive species that's everywhere now
Yes. Yes.
in the ditches and along paths and things. So I know some municipalities try to keep it trimmed, cut. So, but that's just something to be aware of. And if you're not sure what it looks like, go on a government website and
Mhm.
identify it correctly, so when you see it.
Yes.
Don't start
Yeah.
chopping it down in the noonday sun. That could be
No.
trouble.
Probably not
Yeah.
a good idea. Yeah. I wonder what it is. Let's chop it down. There's an app. I know my husband.
Oh, there is. Yeah.
Going around with an app last year, identifying all this stuff that we didn't even know.
Yeah, those are cool. They can work quite well, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Plant ID. There's a few of them. So.
Yeah, we did it with the mushrooms to figure out why the dogs were hallucinating. It's the mushrooms.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Shawn, for this information. And as I've mentioned before, you are offering workshops at the greenhouse every Saturday, correct?
Yeah, for the month of March.
Yeah.
And then certainly if anyone has questions, about their garden kind of throughout the growing season, if you want to know what to plant that could be useful or, anything like that, please give me a call and we could have an informal chat, but I'm happy to help the community just be a guide and a resource for helping make your garden more useful and grow some medicinal plants and increase your enjoyment.
Yes. I can tell you're passionate about it because you're looking for other people's lands to go and play on that. I've done my miracle garden. Now I want to go and play in somebody else's. You're passionate about this. I know.
That's right. I can't stop. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shawn, for your time.
Thanks for having me, Anne. It's a pleasure. Thank you.